Hi, welcome to FilmSauce. I'm FilmSauce, and in this Sauce video, I figured I'd celebrate the upcoming release of James Gunn's Superman by doing the movie Superman. The 1978 one, by the way. Directed by Richard Donner, Superman has the classic story of the iconic alien orphan being sent to Earth from his dying planet. There he grows up to become the superhero for the ages. Warner Bros. Had acquired DC Comics back in the 1960s through multiple brand mergers. Yet there was a little interest in using these IPs, but a series of deals, scripts, and a potential hiring of Gene Hackman and Marlon Brando eventually led to the birth of this great film that would entertain and inspire millions. So quickly turn around and around to put on your super suits and fly with me into the world of Superman. I'm so sorry. The film starts off with these credits, backed up with the amazing iconic theme that was created by the one and only John Williams and played by the London Symphony Orchestra. This theme will also be played in James Gunn's upcoming film. Once we get through the mass amount of headbanging to this absolute banger, we see the burning red Krypton sun, which was created by Les Bowie, who filled a bucket with gasoline, set it on fire, then filmed it straight down. Amazing. But get that sun out of here, because we are focusing on Krypton, where we see a court trial for General Zod and his two followers, who I'm not bothered to learn their names till the sequel. They are under trial, though, for an attempted revolution, and the big scary faces on the wall announce Zod and his friends as guilty. But the man with the final say on the matter is this guy, Jor-El, who Zod tries to get to join his fascist side of the Force? But Jor-El ain't into that stuff, I guess, so he just leaves, and these guys get imprisoned in this square, and they fly away. And yes, that square is the Phantom Zone, and that's a way to depict it. We now see Jor-El, played by Marlon Brando, debate with some other Kryptonians about the state of Krypton, as he has a theory that the planet will explode within 30 days. And I guess Jor-El didn't give the other Kryptonians an offer they couldn't refuse, because they basically called Jor-El insane and threatened him. Jor-El now prepares an escape pod to carry Kal-El, who is his little baby child, to Earth. And Jor-El, who has one last speech to his son, and yeah, his mother Lara, played by Susanna York, is here too. Thought I'd mention her, but just about every Superman story, she doesn't do much. Krypton now begins noticeably destabilizing and becoming more red, but baby Kal-El leaves in his pod while we watch everyone on Krypton die. So remember, kids, if an old crazy man tells you the world is about to end, he's probably right. Especially if it's Marlon Brando. Now, Krypton explodes and we watch that pod travel to Earth, with Kal-El slowly growing up. The pod now crash lands on Earth, where it is discovered by this Pa and Ma Kent, the later being played by Phyllis Thaxter. The older couple decide to put pants on this kid and adopt him. No, bad kid, put the truck down. Naughty. We now cut forward to the future with Kal-El grown up, and he just shows off his great powers of strength, speed, etc. But we get this nice scene of Pa Clark spreading his wisdom to young Clark, telling him he's here for a reason. But we can't have a good time for too long, as Pa Kent has a heart attack, and yeah, he dies. Yikes. But Pa Kent was played by Glenn Ford, who you might know from the hit movie Happy Birthday to Me. But this guy, he lived a life indeed. He fought in World War II and was a well-known womanizer who had affairs with many female leads, including a one-night stand with Marilyn Monroe. Wow. Okay. One funeral later, late at night, Clark discovers this green thing, kryptonite, that Jor-El placed in his pod. Then he decides he has to leave, and damn man, leaving your adoptive mother here all alone after the death of her husband? Superman, Major Eck. The landscape now changes to the cold Arctic, where we watch Clark throw the kryptonite into the ground. This now summons the construction of the Fortress of Solitude, and this is probably the most iconic look of the Fortress of Solitude. In comics beforehand, the fortress was just a base carved into the side of an Arctic cliff. Donna radically reinvented the look. It's kind of the one that you see a lot today. Clark now hops on over to the fortress, and inside he finds all these crystals, and decides to place one in the disk drive or something, because a recording of Jor-El plays where he explains to Clark who he is and informs him that all those crystals are recordings of Jor-El explaining important stuff. We now cut back to Clark, who's donned his Superman suit and flies into a cut to Metropolis, where in the Daily Planet we are introduced to these two characters. Jimmy Olsen, played by Mark McClure, who we've seen before as Marty McFly's brother, and there's Lois Lane, portrayed by Margot Kidder, who's had a bit of a mess of a life, sadly. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder in 1988 and would have a mental breakdown in 1996, where she then became homeless for a while. Thankfully, help was provided to her, and she became a prominent mental health advocate. Sadly, she did end up passing away in 2019 in suicide. So rest in peace, Margot. Now, while Lois tries to sell a story, we are introduced to our older Clark Kent. The role had now switched from young Jeff East to Christopher Reeve, who also lived a difficult life further down the line, with a horse riding accident causing Reeve to become paralyzed, and he later passed away in 2004 due to cardiac arrest. This episode's sad, man. After work at the Daily Planet is done, Lois and Clark walk out onto the street. When the two are threatened with a gun, they walk into an alley and Lois decides to kick the man, who then fires a shot at her, but somehow this guy Clark catches the bullet. Somehow, Robber Man just runs away and the two just leave, but not without Clark listing everything that is in Lois's purse. Yeah, I know Clark is definitely a creep. Ladies, stay away from this man. He is no good. Now, we cut away from Clark and Lois to these undercover police officers. Following this random guy, who the coppers say can lead them to this random guy called Lex Luthor. I don't know who that is, but his name does bear a striking resemblance to the hit 1980s band Sex Luthor. Anyway, one of the cops follow the man down the train platform onto the rails, where he sees the guy take a secret door. The cop attempts to follow, but we see a guy watching the cop from a camera room, press a few buttons, which makes the door push the cop in front of a train. Now we get introduced to our three villains. The guy who is followed to the base is Otis, played by Ned Beatty. The one disgusted by the death of the cop here is Eve Teschmacher, played by Valerie Perrine, and everyone's favourite Lex Luthor is here, portrayed by Gene Hackman, who recently passed away this year with very strange circumstances. And the information I have about it now is that his wife passed away due to a virus, and Gene, who was suffering from Alzheimer's disease, was believed to have prevented him from realising his wife had passed away, and he later died to severe heart disease. This episode's really sad, man. I'm being put down by this. Next one will be happy, I swear. Lex Luthor now hints at his evil plan, which is supposedly a real estate swindle. So how bad can that really be? Night dawns on Metropolis now, and we watch a helicopter coming to pick up Lois. And, man, I must be watching Final Destination, because these wire things just jump up and wrap themselves around the helicopter, causing the pilots to lose control of the chopper, and it crashes onto the roof, with it leaning over a drop into the city streets below. Lois attempts to climb out of the chopper, but she ain't doing that too well, and Clark, she just walks out on the street, finding the perilous situation, and then he runs to some revolving doors, suits up as Superman, and yeah. Lois now loses grip on the helicopter, falling to her death. But Hooray, Superman is here and picks her up in the helicopter. Once the pilots and Lois are safe, Supes flies away, stopping all the crimes riddling Metropolis streets. Behind the scenes, to make it look like Christopher Reeves was flying, they used a varying amount of techniques. Wires and harnesses, blue screens, two-way mirrors, projections, and more were used to create these impressive effects that may look a bit dated now, but for the 70s, it's really impressive. At the Daily Planet, they're trying to exploit the story of this Superman, and Lois finds a note from a friend to meet at her place at 8. The next scene, we have Lois and Superman meet up, and he decides to have an interview with her, where we find out he is single, 6'4", hates period cramps, and loves feminist literature. Yeah, I made those last two things up, but sorry, must have been my description. After a few minutes of flirting, Superman decides to take Lois flying, and apparently this flying scene had a type of musical sequence in it, which would have felt a bit out of place in this film, but they did have Lois recite a poem in it. That's cool. Superman now drops Lois back off at home and flies away, and in the same unbroken shot, we see Lois answer a door with Clark on the other side. Now, Christopher Reeves doesn't have an identical twin or a clone, so the filmmakers pre-recorded Superman flying away and it played on a screen Margot Kidder was in front of. Then she answered the door. It's just where Christopher Reeves actually was. I really like this thing. That's amazing. Back with Lex, he is researching Superman, and since Lois's interview in the Daily Planet paper informs Lex that Superman is from Krypton and hates period cramps, he finds the one thing that can hurt Superman: kryptonite. Lex and his goons now go ahead and tamper with some missiles, and off-screen, Lex steals some kryptonite as well as buying a lot of seemingly useless land. Clark is now in a meeting with this big boss man at the Daily Planet when he hears a high-pitched ringing, which contains a message from Lex. He threatens to use the poison gas to kill people. Yeah, that's generally what's useful. Unless Superman decides to meet Lex, so Clark jumps out of a window, gets his suit on, and flies over to Lex's base, and now he explains his whole plan. His plan was to buy out this whole worthless desert land, then divert a missile, San Andreas Fault, which would flood most of California, creating a new coastline at Lex Luthor's land, making him quite a bit of money. And I'm just saying, I'm not from California, but maybe this is a good idea. The missiles being used to destroy the San Andreas Fault have now been diverted. Superman is too slow to stop two missiles, and the only way to put a stop to them is using Lex's detonator, which seemingly is in this lead chest. But when Superman opens the chest, he doesn't find a detonator, instead a kryptonite necklace, which Lex Luthor places around Soup's neck. That's nice. And Soups is dumped into a pool to drown, which takes a while. Now, Lex does reveal that one missile's going towards the San Andreas Fault, while the other is going to Hackensack, New Jersey. And that's where Teschmacher's mother lives, and even though she is a criminal, she is a good enough daughter to save Superman, who flies away to save the day. But despite the fact that Lois and Jimmy are at the San Andreas Fault, Soup made a promise to Teschmacher to save her mother first. So he destroys the missile, heading to Hackensack first, but the other missile does hit the San Andreas Fault, causing mayhem throughout all of California. Superman goes and seals the San Andreas Fault back up, but the earthquakes continue to devastate Southern California. And Superman attempts to save as many lives as possible, including Jimmy Olsen, but not including Lois, who is in her car when it falls into a crack in the ground, which leads to her suffocating to death. What is this movie rated? Is it PG? And Soups is distraught from her death, so he flies around the Earth's atmosphere, spinning around the Earth as fast as supernaturally possible, which causes the Earth to go back in time. So Superman fixes Southern California and brings Lois back to life. And the two almost kiss before Jimmy decides to cock-block them. God damn it, Jimmy! Oh, and Lois almost pieces together that Clark is Superman, but she shrugs it off. Superman now drops Otis and Lex to a prison when Lex finally reveals his bald head. Oh, apparently Gene Hackman didn't want to wear a skull cap in the film, so he only appears bald in this scene, and in every other scene he wears a toupee. Gene also originally refused to shave his mustache for the role, but he did cut a deal with the director where they both shaved their mustaches. What a couple of men. Superman flies up to space now for the closing of the film, and hey, let's just get to those bloody source points, okay? I want this over. This episode's so sad. When rating the film, I'm first going to say what I liked, then what I disliked about it. Going on to what I liked, the effects for this movie are just great. I love them forever. I know they are a bit dated and sometimes a lot dated, but it's just so charming to me. I really love the sets within this film, particularly the Fortress of Solitude and Lex's secret lair. They're just so beautiful. And talking about Lex, I love his evil plan. This may just be a small thing to like about the film, but I love how his whole evil plan is just the most extreme version of a real estate swindle. All the performances are good, except for one, which I'll get into later, but Christopher Reeves really just set the bar for what Superman is supposed to be. And one last random thing to love is the costume design. And it's just not Superman's costume, but everyone in this film has this beautiful 70s drip. Now on to the negatives. I wish Jimmy Olsen had a bigger role in the story, because that character could be such a goat and it was kind of wasted. The time reversal ending, while iconic, feels a bit cheap. And this wasn't the greatest Lex Luthor performance, which is a shame since it's Gene fucking Hackman playing him, and he could have done so much better. Maybe having a bald head would have actually made it better. And my final critique is that the film's pacing can just feel so slow at times. It's just such a long film, and they just linger on things that don't need to be lingered on. But yeah, my final verdict for this film is an 8.5 at the source points. That's nice. Now, this is the end of the video. Like, subscribe, and now leave. Just go. I don't want to see your face, your beautiful face, until the next video. Okay, come back for that. Please. I want to see you again. Bye.